Today, I have an incredible guest to share with you. Her name is Alicia Navarro. She is a serial entrepreneur with a passion for product, brand design, and culture. She's currently the founder and CEO of Flown, a communal focused platform that helps professionals battle distraction and isolation at work. But that's not all. Before that, she was the co-founder and CEO of Skimlinks, a platform helping publishers such as BuzzFeed and Condé Nast monetize their commerce-related content, which is pretty amazing because she started the company in her living room in Sydney, Australia over 11 years ago, and then grew it to a $50 million a year company. And then it was acquired during the first COVID lockdown. And on top of that, this woman has awards. She sits on boards. She is doing charity work. There is nothing that she doesn't do. Welcome so much, Alethea. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Vanna. It's a pleasure.
You have such, it's so exciting talking to women in tech, especially very successful women in tech. And there are more and more these days, but growing up, there weren't a lot of us, and I'm not in one, so I don't know why I said us. But I would love to start talking a little bit about your roots and your background. I know you grew up in Australia and you are of Cuban and Spanish descent, right?
Yeah. My dad is Cuban, and he met my mum in Spain, and then they emigrated to Australia. We were very much, working class roots. My dad was an electrician. My mum was she had had to leave school quite young because her dad died, and so she'd been working from the age of 15, helping her mother at the laundromat for the nearby, army base in Spain. And in Australia, we were poor, but as with all migrants, they really valued education, and so really emphasized that with us. Unfortunately, my dad had quite a bad accident when I was about 9 or so at a construction site, and so he basically broke his back and was in a body cast from his neck to his
Oh,
knee for
wow.
3 months, and then unable to work for many years, like for a decade afterwards. So my mother had to go from being a stay-at-home mum to getting a job to raise the entire family,
Oh,
and the
wow.
only thing she knew how to do was work in a laundromat. So my parents, sent me and my sister to private school, on the salary of my mum working as a presser in a dry
Wow.
cleaner.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, but it made my sister and I incredibly resilient, I guess, and quite ambitious. And yeah, so I went and studied computer science. I got a scholarship for high school, a scholarship for university. And yeah, from a very early age, sort of made up my mind that I was going to be, at the time I called it a businesswoman, because the word entrepreneur really was not in my vocabulary. But I always had ideas for businesses. Like, the way I guess I saw the world was from the lens of how to make a product that would make it better. And so
That's
from,
so
yeah,
cool.
my earliest age, even at high school, I there's a program called, in Australia it was called Young Achievers, but in the UK it's Young Enterprise. I think in the US it's Junior Achievers. It's the same
Mhm.
thing, where basically you get put into a group with other students, like 16-year-old students, and you go through the sort of 6-month real process of running a company. You come up with a concept, you elect a board of directors, you manufacture the product, you sell it. And to my amazement and joy, I was like voted the managing director of my company.
Wait, and this you're a
We
teenager? How old are you at this
I was
point?
I was 16. I we ended
Impressive.
up Yeah, we ended up manufacturing the product that was my idea, which was this like lip gloss that we ended up making every weekend for months.
Wow.
And then we won like the venture of the year in my state. And from that moment I was like, wow, I think I can do this. This is fun. And that kind of began my entrepreneurial passion.
That's so cool. So two things really stick out to me that I think probably made such an impact, right? Like you watched your mom really change her circumstances, right? Something happened and your mom's like, you know what, I can do this. I'm going to take care of the family. And you got really to see the strong female role model, no matter what she did. And I think that that is so incredibly helpful when you like link success often with women. It's like at least someone in their community, they're expanded by that. And the fact that like at 16 years old, everyone looked at you and they're like, we're picking you, we're picking your thing. And all of a sudden you're making it, like that had to be so incredible. No wonder you were
Well,
hooked.
what's crazy is that before that, you have to understand, I was quite a very shy, introverted nerd. Like, no one ever noticed me. No one ever picked me for anything. I didn't play sport. I was the weird kid in the corner with the homemade haircut and the glasses that
Oh,
were just like the cheapest that the optometrist had, and homemade clothes. And I was, going to a school with, it was a private school, so everyone was wearing designer labels and had nice cars. And so to suddenly, be picked for this and realize and then actually do well at it, yeah, it was, I think, quite a transformative moment in my life. Yeah.
I would think so. I would really think so. And were you always interested in, computer science, tech, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I taught myself how to code when I was like 8 or something. Dad came home with the Commodore 64, which was huge at the time because you got
Oh,
these books and you could like type in these programs. And I remember I was so geeky. I remember coding a maths quiz to give to like the popular girl at school as a birthday present. You can see why I was not a popular girl.
oh my God. Wow. Yeah. At
Yeah,
8 years
so
old,
I
I was
loved
like
it.
hanging out, painting pictures in my room or something. Like, that's very impressive.
I just loved it. I loved that you could, and because I love to read. So for me, tech was like the ability to craft your own world. And that was, I think, that was intoxicating. And really, I think that now, even as an adult, that's what I love about it, that you get to kind of, you get to create your own world around you.
Well,
It's
with
cool.
entrepreneurship, it's so creative. Like you are an artist in your
It
own
is.
way. Like seeing the world, improving the world. It's art. I feel like it's definitely all art. So okay, here we are. You're killing it in high school. You're already like a head and neck above everyone else. And then so you end up. Do you go to university in Australia? I know at some point you end up in the UK. What was that journey like?
Yeah. Yeah. I got a scholarship to a computing science course in Australia. So studied there, and at the end of that, got a job at IBM in their sort of business in their business consulting group, which was great for about a year and a bit. And then I got put onto this was now like 2000 when the world
Hmm.
is starting to slide into recession.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then, and actually it was early 2001. And so I got put into this like really, really dull data warehouse re-engineering project, and I
Mm-mm.
hated it, and thought, I don't want to do it. So I actually quit my job at IBM to start one of my many ill-fated startups. I had already started one a few years prior to that, which was like clubbing holidays to Ibiza, which didn't last very long because I realized that I had
Great
no
idea,
idea.
though.
Well, from Australia back in like, 99, that was like a novel thing. But I worked out very quickly that I was not cut out to be a travel agent. So that sort of idea lasted a couple of months. And then I quit IBM to start Fun and Fearless Computing, which was complete some solution computing solutions for senior citizens. And so I just used like my own money, and I lasted at that for about 3 months before I realized I had no idea how to do any marketing. I had no idea the money to do anything. And I realized, yeah, this wasn't going to work. So I somehow managed to go back to the company that IBM had been contracting me to,
Mhm.
which was a big telecommunication company in Australia. I went back to them and said, look, do you want to hire me direct? So in the end, I managed to get back to the same job I hated, but paid 5 times as much.
Oh, wow. And how did you negotiate that? Just because it was like more direct to the company or?
Direct to the company. And so I just was, I yeah, I just got a
Wait, so
standard
how
company
old were you at this point that you were
I was
negotiating 5 times this?
20. Well, what's crazy, I was 23. And what was crazy about this is that once I was there and I befriended the other business analysts, I discovered that the men were being paid a lot more. So I went to my manager and I said, look, I'm fine. Others around me that I'm doing the same work and I'm doing as much work as they are being paid this much. I think you should pay me the same. She said, oh, okay. Yeah, that's fair. And then I said something I can't believe. I said, and I think you should pay me that retrospectively for the time that I've been working here. And she's like,
At
what?
23.
So at 23, I bought an apartment. I was like, I had more money than I'd ever had in my life, than I ever thought to have. And the greed kind of gets worse because then I realized, you know what, my friends at this stage that were doing similar work to me had moved to London. And at the
Mm-hmm.
time, London, the pound to the Aussie dollar was 3-1. So
Oh, wow.
doing the same work that I was doing could be paid 3 times as much in London. So I thought, why don't I do that? I've always wanted to live in London. So I quit my job and moved to London, only to find I moved basically in 2001 when the
Uh-oh.
dot-com bubble burst.
Uh-oh. Yep.
And so suddenly every single company that, yes, had been hiring contractors like me at 3 times what I was paid in Australia, they were fired them all. And suddenly there was a gluttony of much more qualified, much more connected people than me on the market. And I was suddenly unemployed for many months.
Oh, wow. And then, so what
Mm-hmm.
happened? This is I'm still stuck in the fact that at 23, you were able to be like, no, 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 no. You need to pay me more and you need to pay me more rent. That's amazing. That's amazing. Anyway,
Well, I
okay, so
just
here
learned
you
from
are
it.
in
I know.
London.
Yeah. Well, then I was every day applying for jobs. Every day I would go to an internet cafe because this is before, this is 2001. So I would go to internet cafe and I would apply for every single business analyst job every day on the market, and I got nowhere. And yes, the Aussie dollar, the pound was 3-1. So now I was eating into my savings at 3 times the rate, and I started to panic. And then, um, amazingly, I ended up meeting through my housemate at the time, someone that was working at another telecommunication to Vodafone, that was a big telecommunication company, and they were looking for a data warehouse business analyst, but as a full-time employee. So in the end, I got the same job that I had worked at twice and hated,
Oh,
but
no.
a tenth of the income that I had expected.
Oh, wow.
But I took it because I needed the work, and I figured I could sideways promote myself in the company, which is
Mhm.
what I then did. So I did well at that job for about a year, and then I decided, right, I don't want to work in the bottom corner basement with the other sort of data warehouse business analysts. I want to be a product manager. But no one would give me, like, the marketing department would, like, the HR department would say, no, no, you need to have a marketing qualification for that. Maybe go and study that. And then eventually maybe we can get you. And I was like, no. So I ended up just befriending the whole product management team and kept hassling them and hassling them. And then eventually they're like, okay, we'll give you a chance. So I got a job as a product manager and loved it and
The
did
tenacity
really
is so
well. I
impressive
know.
here. I feel like everyone needs to listen to this and like take a note, like so many women, because you're just doing things that I think, even at the time probably was a lot of women weren't
Yeah,
doing.
maybe. I mean, I guess I just had the chutzpah of youth,
Yeah.
and also
Yeah.
I worked out. I had it was a real moment of revelation. It was early in my role in the data warehouse team, and I was in a big meeting, a big corporate meeting where there was lots of people, mostly men, and I was in the corner quiet, just listening, going, "Wow, everyone's so smart. Everyone's talking so much and saying so many intelligent things." And eventually, after going to a few of those meetings, I realized, you know, I don't think they're actually that much more intelligent than me. I think that they just have more bluster. They're just more
Mm.
confident. Maybe I can do that too. And And I then actually, I don't know if I can tell the story. You might want to edit this out, but I discovered this really incredible technique that was really helpful to me when I was a 24-year-old working, with all these like very senior men. I'd be in a meeting and they'd be talking at me, and it's kind of like, I'm going to tell you what to do way. And I would just sit there and listen to them talk. But in my mind, I was imagining that they were underneath me and I was on them, riding them sexually. And
I will not edit this out. This is exactly the type of insight that we want on this podcast. I'm going to take it.
yeah, it's not like I was suddenly like, ugh. But there, I just realized, you know what? There's power at play, and
Yes.
people
Yes.
have there's different kinds of power in a room. And men have the benefit of height and, breadth and a deep voice and years of experience. But women have a power too. We can unsettle a man just by our presence. And I wasn't going to be stupid. I wasn't slutty. It was just I was going to sit there
Right.
quietly, look at them, and I found that when I did that, and nothing changed, but maybe something in the air changed, or maybe how I held myself, I don't know. But they would start to stumble over their words and look away. And I was like, right, I've got you. So this is what we're actually going to do.
Oh my
So I
God.
did
I
that.
love that.
It's
I
so
love that. So, and at 24, I mean,
yeah,
I like,
yeah.
we all need notes from your like early 20s self. Like, this is incredible. I, I love that so much because you were just able to sit there and be like, wait a minute. Like they're gonna intimidate me. Everyone's older. Maybe they're going to, mansplain whatever men love to do to us in those situations, especially in our early 20s. But you're like, you know what? I am going to harness the energy that I have. And like, I think it's, nothing even slutty about it. It's like, that is the type of power that we contain. And when you can sort of embody it without doing anything, like it's amazing. Just that subtle shift, you're like making men uncomfortable. I think that is a
I know.
beautiful lesson. At first I thought you were gonna say picture them in their underwear. I was like, yeah, 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 this is so much better.
No, yeah. It was quite funny. So yeah, then I did like that. I did quite well then, and I was promoted and was doing quite well. And then after that, because of that, I ended up getting headhunted by a startup that wanted a head of product,
Mhm.
and that was quite well paying. And so I moved over to that,
And
and
did you
that was
know
my
when you were trying to make this lateral move into the product, to being head of product at the previous company, did you know you'd like that?
Yeah, so I had a really great piece of advice actually from another colleague who I remember going to this very fateful lunch with a bunch of random Vodafone employees. And some of them were lamenting about the fact that they didn't like their role and they wanted a promotion, but they didn't really know what they wanted to do next.
Hmm.
And one of the guys said something really incredible. He said, look around the company. You're in this incredible opportunity to be working for a large company like Vodafone, where you can observe different people and what they do.
Hmm.
Find the role that you want. Find the
Mm.
role, look around and go, what is the role that you want? Befriend them and then go after that role. And I was like, okay, well, the role I want is product manager because it is like the perfect combination of techie and creative, like
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
businessy and like you get to talk to the techies, but you also get to talk to customers. And that seemed to like fit my kind of techie creative mix.
mhm, mhm.
And it turns out also being a product manager is a great um, early role if you want to be eventually an entrepreneur because
Mhm.
the product manager is basically a CEO of their product.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it was like my stepping stone to what I knew I wanted to do further down the line.
Oh,
And
perfect.
that was, yeah, so I learned everything. And then, yeah, I went and worked in a startup and that I loved even more because I realized, fuck this like big corporate stuff. I get to
Yeah.
actually build something and not just write PowerPoint slides. And that was I got addicted.
Right, back to that 16-year-old creativity, right? Where it's like, let's make stuff. That's so cool. And then how old were you at this point?
I was 28. 28.
I mean, I'm just incredibly impressed already. I was like still figuring out. I'm like, oh, who 28? Do I know my phone number? Like what's happening? Like I think no, this is so cool. Okay, so you're there. And then so when does your first company, Skimlinks, when do you come up with this idea? And was it something in the back burner for a while? How did you get brave enough to sort of put that out there?
So um after like working, I spent 4 years living in London, and at the end of that, a lot of my friends had started to return back to Australia. And my boyfriend at the time, he was Australian as well. So we thought, yeah, let's it's probably time now. Let's move back to Australia and do the thing that all Aussies do, which is go back and build a life back there. But first, let's go, travel around the world for 6 months. So did my backpacking, and in that time, really thought a lot about what I wanted, the next decade of my life to be. And I swore to myself then that I would never work for a big company again.
Mm-hmm.
That now that I had tasted startup life, that I wanted to either work for a small company or start my own company.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back to Australia with that vow in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
and took some jobs consulting while starting. I started playing around with some affiliate businesses just to see if I could make a little bit of money on my own. And then out of the blue, I had an opportunity to apply to be a product manager for Google Maps.
Oh, okay.
And that put me in a real pickle, because on one hand, I love maps. I'm a real map geek. And it was like, what an incredible role to be product manager for Google Maps, because that was led out of Australia at the time. But Google's a big company that breaks my
Yeah.
vow. What do I do? So I thought, look, well, let's just go through the interview process and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a couple of rounds of virtual interviews, and then they had one in person. I got through those, and then I had one day of in-person interviews at their offices, and they had 4 intensive interviews throughout that day. The penultimate interview, one of the questions they asked is, right, why don't you come up with a product idea and talk about how you'll monetize it? And so I'm sitting there going, and in that moment, I remember this idea that I'd had a while ago about this, a tool that would help you with group decision making. Because I remember when I was trying to book a villa in Ibiza for friends, there's all these criteria. Do you want to pool or not? Do you want it with a view or not? If it's a cheaper price, maybe that's okay. There's all these multi factors that you want to consider, and lots of inputs, and you want to be out of one place where you store all the options that you're considering. So I'd always thought about that, because that was a problem that I'd really experienced and understood. And then at the same time, I also suddenly remembered that this was the early days of Web 2, these more interactive websites. And I suddenly realized, I know how actually I could build that. So I just started talking about this social decision-making tool that lets you scrape sites that you're considering and bookmarks it into this one page so that you can share that and arrive at sort of group decision. And as I'm talking about this, I get really excited and go, gosh, this is kind of cool. And what was interesting is then the final interview of the day, I did really badly, really badly. To the extent that I remember thinking, this almost feels like the universe wants me to fail, because at one stage in the interview, I actually said, I really apologize. I am not that stupid. But it was so bad. So I walked out of that interview with 2 thoughts in my mind. One, I definitely don't have the job. And 2, I don't care, because I'm going to start this company. So I did. I started this company, and for the next year, I used my savings. I hired a team of developers in Romania. I still had a full-time job I was working consulting for a media company in Australia. And nights and weekends, I would work with this Romanian developers, and I would build out this platform. And then a year on, I realized I needed a bit more money to continue. So I thought, right, let's fundraise for this. And I went to the one VC in Australia at the time, and he looked at the site and said no. And I was stuck. What next? So I decided to do again what all Australians do in times of confusion. I went once again on a walkabout and went
I
traveling for
think
6
that
weeks.
honestly such a good thing about Australian culture. Americans are the opposite. They're never leave, don't get a passport. No, I think it's so you go explore.
Yeah, well, I actually, and we can talk about this later, because actually the process of going away from your day to day is a really key tool that I use, and it has always borne fruit for me. So in this case, I went to
Yeah.
Romania to visit the developers, but then I also went to London to visit some friends. And while there, I was talking to another entrepreneur friend of mine and told him about what I built and why I was
Mhm.
stuck. And he said three things that changed my life. He said, firstly, why don't you think about making it like a B2B version of this that you can license to other websites? And two, why don't I've got a company actually that probably will license this from you? Let me introduce you. And I also have someone that might help you with some money and give you free office space. And bless his heart, he ended up doing all those three things. So while I'm on holidays,
Amazing.
I had to call up my remaining developers and say, hi, we've got like 3 days to build a working prototype of this thing. I had to open up PowerPoint and create a PowerPoint for a product that didn't even exist yet. I had to borrow clothes from my friend because I was in like flip flops and shorts, and I had to suddenly wear like a business outfit. And I rock up to this wedding website and said to them, pitch this product that I had not built yet. And they loved it so much that they paid me for a year. They paid me a customization fee, which basically then was the money that I used to build it, plus a year up front. So I was like, well, I guess I have a business. So I ended up flying back to Australia on August the 18th. By September the 18th, so within a month, I'd sold my car, sold all my furniture, gave up my apartment, quit my job, dealt with my poor mother who was now heartbroken that her daughter was leaving Australia again, and built the
Oh.
product, and then moved back to London to be a penniless entrepreneur once again with no job at the age of 30. So that's how Skimlink, well, that's how Skimbit began. And this was like a social bookmarking site. It was a social shopping site, basically, like Pinterest for
Yeah.
decisions.
Okay.
And I spent the next year trying to get another client and couldn't. And now this is 2008. So the world is starting to slide once again into recession. And I'm
Right.
realizing if I don't sort something out, I'm going to be penniless and lose like the last 2 years of my life. Like, holy shit. And what we realized is, the site that we had was bookmarking products from retailers that had affiliate programs. So we thought, well, another way that we can make money besides charging like a subscription fee for our product is to do a rev share on the affiliate commissions from people that buy from our site. All we need to do is come up with this way to automatically turn these user generated product links into their equivalent affiliate links, which are like trackable commission generating links. So we built that just for ourselves. And I found that when I was pitching to investors or pitching to potential customers, more people were interested in this way of making money that we had invented for ourselves than in everything else that I built.
So with the
So in this,
affiliate links and the tracking, interesting, interesting.
so in this moment of despair, when I realized I have to do something, I ended up calling like a random audiovisual website up and said, "Hi, you don't know me, but I've got this idea for a product. I'm wondering if I built this, would you use it?" And he ended up being very lovely and became one of my like long-term clients. But he said, I gave him a pitch and he was like, "Yeah, I would." I said, "Okay, give me 2 weeks." So hung up the phone to him, called up my CTO, said, "Right, we have to dump everything we've built for the last 2 years and instead commercialize this monetization technology so that other people can use it." He's like, "Okay." And we did it. And in 2 weeks, we ended up closing. We built it. We got all these clients. We closed our seed round of funding, and that was the day after Lehman Brothers collapsed. Like the
Oh
worst
my
day.
God. So wait,
So
I need to
suddenly,
back it up for a second because when you, even in the first iteration of this, you sold something that wasn't even real yet. Where did this bravery come from? Like throughout your story, you just continue to be brave and put yourself out there. Is this just something you've had since childhood? Is this like, I think about other people listening to this, and I get a lot of people, and especially women, right? And they always talk about like how women don't apply for jobs unless they're like 110% qualified, and men are just like 50% getting them, right? And here you are, this beautiful example for years since your 20s, like your early 20s, of being like, I got this, give me more money. Like, do you have tips or where does this bravery come from?
I think so. There's a few ways I can answer that. I think that if you had asked me that like a couple of years ago, I would have said it was probably just from observing how men operated. And
Yeah.
it was clear to me that that's what they did. And I was like, well, I can do that. And I think what it is you develop, like, do you have enough confidence? Because if you wait until you're sure before you start, you'll never start.
Yeah.
But if you just have enough confidence in yourself that you'll work it out along the way, And that even if you fail, like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Then that kind of takes a lot of the fear away. So that kind of, I just had a lot of confidence in myself, I guess. I just looked
Yeah.
around and thought, I'm smarter than most of these people. So I'll just, like, what's the worst that can happen?
Well, I think
Um,
the not fearing failure is really big too, and a lot of people are afraid,
well, what
and
I had to, I
especially
mean, I
with
was
startups.
scared. Don't get me wrong. I was very, very scared. But the mental trick that I used to do is say, right, let's imagine the worst. Like, what is the most likely worst case scenario?
Mhm.
So not an unlikely scenario, like, I'll be destitute, but like, what
Right.
is really like, I wasn't going to be destitute. What's the most likely worst case scenario? The most likely worst case scenario would be that I lost the money that I'd spent on this business for the last few years,
Mhm.
but I probably would get another job and it would probably be really high. I'd probably make a lot more money because I've got a lot of experience. I've got a lot of connections now. I built a good reputation. Failure in a startup is not failure. Like, they love that stuff. So
Mhm.
the most likely worst case scenario is I will have a really great high paying job.
There you go.
That's not that bad. That's
No, no.
fine.
And I think in most circumstances, when people take themselves through that exercise, it's never as bad as you think. It's never as bad as
No,
you think. And I think immediately everyone goes to, I'm going to be homeless. But I think with a lot of people, it's not even close.
no, right, exactly. So that's like that. That's kind of how I've seen it. I think if you, what I have learned in the last couple of years from running Flown and being exposed to particularly women with ADHD
Mhm.
is that one, and I have not been diagnosed, but I suspect that I'm on the spectrum because
Mhm.
this kind of, um, you know, eyes bigger than my stomach sort of thing. That's an
Mhm.
expression my mother says. I don't know if that
Yeah.
translates to English,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah. No, we
like,
have it too.
yeah, this like, of course I can do that. Of course I can do that. Of course I can do that. Oh, holy shit. Now I have to actually do it is not uncommon for women with ADHD. And I kind of,
Wait, I didn't know that. That's actually a really good quality, I think.
well, that's why I think it can be really great quality for a leader because it gets you over the fear of starting stuff. And if you are also, because again, a lot of people with ADHD can be very charismatic and
Mhm.
can tell a good story, and that's what's needed to bring people on that can help you actually execute the grand vision. And so, the other thing that I've always done is make sure that I'm surrounded by really great operators that can balance my weaknesses with their strengths. So
Yeah.
I'm great at a lot of things, but I'm not great at structure, at some elements of execution. So at Skimlinks, my first employee was an operations manager.
Mhm.
Same thing now at Flown. Like, you just always bring in great operators that you bond with that can sort of help you execute and moderate your wildest visions.
Yeah. So the one other thing I want to touch on before I move forward is your ability. I think a problem a lot of people have is, you have this one idea, you get very attached to it, you hold on, and maybe it sinks your ship. And what happened for you with when you pivoted with this company, where you're like, wait, 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 wait. I'm seeing this other thing over here. I'm going to no ego involved. I'm going to let go of this other thing, and I'm going to pivot. Was that challenging, or was it obviously? I mean, if that's where the money is, that feels like an easy pivot. But on some level, was that a little bit challenging to let go of your initial idea?
Yes, and I think this is probably another reason why women can be really great at business because they tend to have less egos than men. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't have like I just wanted to survive and not let down the people that had trusted me, my employees, the people that had invested in me to date. And so my ego came second to the
Mhm.
obligations I felt I had to others that trusted me. So that made that decision relatively easily. Like, all that mattered was survival. The fact that whether it was with the original idea or the new one, didn't care.
Mhm.
Um, and I've done the same again. I feel like I'm sometimes the pivot queen because I sort of did the same now with Flown. Like, what it began with, and then 6 months in, I pivoted, dumped what I had spent the last 6 months building, and
Mhm.
doubled down on an element of it that we had no. I had never intended to be the main product. So
Uh,
that is also very, very common because the thing is, ideas are really cheap. Ideas get you started, but
Mhm.
it's then execution and deep empathy with the market that help you succeed. Because it's once you're in it and you're talking to customers and you're selling to them and they're giving you feedback, that you get the insights that no one outside could possibly
Mhm.
have gotten on their own. And so
Mhm.
once you're there, you realize no one actually wants a social shopping site. Although, to be fair, Pinterest then came out afterwards and proved that I was wrong. But anyway, I built an early Pinterest. But anyway,
No big deal. Well, at least we know
no
you're
big deal.
brilliant.
But yeah, no, I think that when you're there, you then go, actually, this is the thing that no one else has thought of, that I think I can execute and I think that I can win at. And so, yeah, ego, I won. So what was the point of, like, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that it wasn't the
No.
original idea. Yeah.
Right, right, right. The ending was exactly what you
But you know what's
wanted.
interesting? I often say that one of the greatest paradoxes of this role is you have to both, at the same time, both be the biggest believer in what you are doing, the biggest champion, the one that will, no matter what hurdles you face, will survive it and guide your team through it. And at the same time, be the first to recognize when you have to stop and change. And those are opposing
Yeah.
beliefs that you have to concurrently hold.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful though. And like so much of it of life is that way, right? It's like how can I fully show up, believe in this and then listen, right? And trust that things might change and not have ego in it and just be able to pivot because again, the more we cling to anything, the more we suffer, right? So, did you go were you looking to sell the company? Did you get approached? How did that come out? Did you exiting happen in the way you expected it to, especially during COVID? That's pretty impressive.
Well, no, because so I we had you know I knew that to sell a company, you had to firstly start building relationships with potential buyers years earlier.
Right.
You had because people buy, and this is the thing down the line that the CEO that of Skimlinks that sold the company didn't quite understand, that people buying a company is not just a financial decision, it's an emotional one. So you've
Yeah.
got to have the potential buyers love you, love the idea, and love what they could possibly be with you as part of them. And so you've got to start telling
Mm.
that story early on and show, and it has to be over time because they have to get to know you, to know that you're not going to screw them over, to know that you can execute. So I had been doing that for years, and as a result, we had multiple acquisition offers and sort of acquisition discussions throughout our time. One even I got half an hour out from the wireless zone of Burning Man, and I was in the car park, like we were going to the final loo trip before we were about to go into no phones, no reception for a week, and I checked my phone and we had an offer to buy our company for a lot of money. And I was like, no! And then we waited half an hour, and then I could have plausible deniability. I could have enjoyed Burning Man, and instead I had to drive all the way back to San Francisco to get my passport, and then all the way back to Reno and fly to London. And unfortunately, the deal didn't go through because we thought we could do better. We wanted a higher number, and they couldn't get there. And of course, you know, in the end, we did sell the company later, but for a fraction of that amount. It was still a good amount, but that was one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my life.
And
So
what do
instead,
you think?
well, oh, go on.
Why do you think that happened? Did you think you had an unreal? Was it the market? Was it what was going on in the world? Was it unrealistic expectations around what you'd get? Or who knows? Shit happens.
What the first offer?
Like yeah, yeah. Like you deciding the first offer was not enough.
Investors get in your head.
Ah, so do you feel like you went against your gut?
I didn't understand how the game was played by investors.
Ah, okay,
So for
okay.
investors,
They always
I
want
I
more
would
money.
no. Well, you see, I would have, like, for me, that would have been like insanely life changing. That would
Mhm.
have been, an incredible sum of money for me, and for that investor, it was an okay return.
Ah.
And for them, it's like, it's a portfolio game. So they're like, "Ah, you can do better. Push for this. Don't you want to be this? Don't you want to be $1 billion business?" I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I do. Okay, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
push for
Yeah.
more." And
Yeah.
now I realize afterwards that that was foolish, that you should, and that you have to kind of understand. I mean, it's, sometimes they're right, and investors do sort of guide you from selling too soon, but you have to kind of understand the motivations of investors and realize when
Yeah.
they're at odds with your motivations. I know
Right.
that now.
Right.
But what's interesting is then, after 11 years of running Skimlinks, I had gotten to the point where I recognized that I was no longer the best person for what that job had become. It no longer
Mm.
was the role for a founder that was
Hmm.
creative and a bit chaotic and super charismatic and loved to get their hands in the detail. The
Right.
company now needed a late stage CEO that was good at structure and EBITDA
Mhm.
maximization. And I could do it, but I knew I was going to hold the company back if
Yeah.
I tried to excel at something that was not my strength.
What was that
So, yeah,
realization like? Because that's a big moment of self-reflection. That's a big deal where you're like, wow, I built
yeah,
this, my child, essentially, this beautiful thing, and now I'm no longer, again, like so many times you've taken your ego out of this, which I think is why you're probably so successful. What was that moment like? Was that pretty devastating, or were you kind of feeling like I'm outgrow this role is not it's feeling clunky. I want to be doing something else. Like, what was that experience?
I mean, it was a lot at the time. Like there was a burnout element. Like it had been 11
Yeah.
years. I, I, I felt tired and I felt stretched and I felt that
Hmm.
I was not, I was trying to be someone that I don't know if I could ever be. And that was
Hmm.
going to not be healthy for me and not for the business. And as I said,
Hmm.
making these kind of ego driven decisions is easy because ultimately I wanted to win. And so if
Right.
the best way to win is to bring in someone else to do the role that I had, in a
Hmm.
second, done.
Hmm.
I will be in that role for as long as I was the best person for the job. But like, if you want to win, you make the right decision. And
But in winning, you had to admit that you weren't the best person anymore. So I would argue that it's sort of both an ego and a not ego-based decision because you're
yeah,
like, it's not me. And that's really big.
yeah. And to be fair, there was like a real period of sort of identity crisis after I
Yeah.
did step down because for 11 years I was Skimlinks. Like my pronouns were interchangeable. I would talk about Skimlinks with saying I
Mhm.
instead of the company. It was my identity, and that took who am I if not Skimlinks? And I remember actually saying this to some of my girlfriends. I went to have drinks with them when this process of stepping down was going through, and I remember saying to them, "Gosh, I don't know, I'm really struggling with this. What am I going to be if I'm not Skimlinks? Like, how will you, all of my friends, like, how will you know me and like me?" And I remember vividly, my friend Katie looked at me and said, "Darling, I don't even know what Skimlinks does.
We need those friends.
I don't care. I just love you." And that was like,
Oh.
okay, fine. Yeah, I chose my successor. He was my chief revenue officer at the time. Convinced him to take the job. Convinced the board that he was the right person for the job. Negotiated sort of how this transition was going to happen, and it was a very smooth, graceful transition. I stayed on the board for the next, until we got acquired 2 years later. But uh, basically, that day was my last. When I told the team, that was my last day in the office, and I was free. And I took from that point on a 2 year sabbatical, which was one of the best things I've ever done.
And what did you do during your sabbatical?
What did I not do, Leanna? What did I not do? I remember
Woo!
in the first kind of week or so after I stepped down, I was so tired of my mind whirring so much with all the
Mhm.
things that I wanted to do that I was like, right, let's get it down onto a Trello board. And I ended up creating 4 different Trello boards of all the things I wanted to do. Like there was one for places I wanted to go, things I wanted to learn, experiences I wanted to have, and I just went nuts and I wrote everything I could possibly want to do. And you know what? I got about like 40% of them done, which is pretty wild considering how many things were on that list. Maybe 50. Like I did a solid amount.
What was
So,
the best or the craziest or the most expansive thing you did in that 2 years? Oh, I always
For
agree.
those that are not
What's
seeing,
is it? What's the name? Or is it he or she?
well, for those that are just listening, yeah, it's a little dog. So I got a dog. So that was great.
Wait? What you have to introduce? You can't bring the dog to the podcast and not introduce us formally. What?
This
Who
is
is this cute
this
little
is
thing?
this is Lumi, the autistic dog. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
very, very
he's very
cute.
strange.
I
So that
love
was
that.
great. I wanted to do Machu Picchu. I
Hmm.
wanted to learn how to be a coach. I wanted to live in different places, like Ibiza. Which I did a little bit after that sabbatical, but still I've done. I wanted to do certain road trips. I wanted to do certain sort of mind altering experiences.
Hmm. Hmm.
I had written it all, and I just systematically went about getting through them, and it was such a blessed period because I was very mind like besides that 6 months of backpacking I did after I left London the first time, I to have that amount of time where you don't have responsibility, you have nowhere to be. I woke up in the morning and I was like, I have nowhere to be. And I deliberately went and explored things and just played with ideas and experimented with things. And I knew that it was a finite time, that
Hmm.
eventually I would work out what I was going to do next. But I had, I guess, this little saying to myself, which is, I wanted to create a big enough space for something really big to be born within it. So,
Ooh.
yeah,
Universe
I
loves a
gave myself,
vacuum.
I created a vacuum. And yeah, it was awesome. I did it all. And so I experimented with I had a lot of offers to be a VC,
Hmm.
which I tried. I experimented with that and then worked out that the job of being a VC is mostly saying no.
Oh.
And I realized I hated saying no to people. I liked
Mm.
finding ways to help them achieve their dreams, not reasons to not back them. So I was not a good VC, and I hated the feeling I had at the end of each day where I'd like burst people's dreams, and I was like, this isn't for
Oh yeah,
me.
that sounds horrible.
And so then I tried being operational within a VC, and then I was like, oh, I tried being I got a coaching qualification and did some coaching, I did some consulting, but I guess the major thing I felt was I'm using all the learnings I had from my time at Skimlinks, all the mistakes I made, all the things that I
Mhm.
now know how to do better, and someone else is benefiting from those. I want to be
Mm.
the beneficiary of my own wisdom. I think I want to
Yes.
do this again.
And was that a scare? I mean, that's a pretty, because it's only a few years later, right? Like that, like building a company of that scale is a huge undertaking. You took over, 11 years of your life. Realizing that you wanted to do it again, was that a little bit terrifying, exciting? You're like, uh-oh, here we go.
Well, there's sort of two answers to that. The first is I, I suspect that starting a business is a little bit like having a baby, in that
Uh-huh.
you sort of forget the pain, and all you remember is
Right.
all the great things, because
Right.
it brought me so much meaning and so much camaraderie and so much purpose and so much creative expression. So I kind of had forgotten during that 2 year sabbatical that the sleeplessness, the stress,
Right.
the
Right.
perpetual heaviness on the shoulders, the fact that you're beholden to the sense of restriction, you forgot that bit. So that's one answer. And the second is I kind of didn't intend for it to be a big business. I just thought, right, I'm just going to start lots of small revenue generating businesses that are passive income. This is great. So I came up, and maybe I'll like find the CEO for them, and I'll just help them get funding, and I'll just kind of
Just
be the
small
like
businesses that need a
small
CEO. Just
businesses.
small
No, I didn't
businesses.
want to be a CEO. I just wanted to be a founder and like start businesses that other people ran. And so I was playing with lots of ideas, like maybe I want to do something in like, the sustainability space. Maybe I want to do something in feminine health. But
Hmm.
I kind of, because during this time I was road tripping with the dog, I was at this stage like traveling by myself through like the Pyrenees and northern
Amazing.
Spain, because why not? And
Exactly.
And I was finding that the moments and I was spending a lot of time journaling, a lot of time reflecting, going for walks. And I found that the moments that I allowed myself to get into a flow state were both the most prolific in terms
Mm-hmm.
of the output of ideas that were
Mm-hmm.
great ideas, and were also my favorite memories. The elation I felt after those moments of flow were my highlights. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't it be great if it was possible to scale the delivery of flow states so people could access that state more easily? And I remember I was talking to my friend, the inventor of Amazon Alexa, and I was telling him all about this. And he said, well, have you not read this book, Deep Work
Mm.
by Cal Newport? I said, no, I read it. And I read it. And I was like, holy shit. It's not just me. This is actually a thing. And it's actually a thing that has been happening for millennia. Like all the great scientists, philosophers, artists, authors have all done their best work when they sought a flow state because of the environment they were in, because of the structure that they put around them. Getting into these flow states and working in a focused and deep manner was at the heart of all great sort of creative and meaningful endeavors, and
Mm-hmm.
also at the heart of joy and a sense of purpose. What
Mm-hmm.
more important thing could I work on for the next decade of my life? So
Oh,
I decided that's what I wanted to
no
work
big
on.
deal. Just a small project, just a tiny project.
Well, yeah, well, initially it was, because initially the product was physical spaces for deep work. So it
Mm-hmm.
was going to be like an Airbnb for deep work spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And I started putting together like a plan for it. And I was going to just, hire someone that could just find some places. And I was going to do it super budget, I didn't, I really didn't want to raise money. I really
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to raise money. And then this was now, and by the way, and throughout all this, which is quite interesting, while I was nomading around the Pyrenees and northern Spain, I thought, let's validate these ideas. Why
Yeah.
don't I run? Why don't I run a deep work retreat and just see like what I can learn from it? So I got my mother to find me a villa in like northwest Spain, and I rented it for a couple of weeks. And then I like got a designer on Fiverr and printed out these banners and these pamphlets and these workbooks. And I ended up like designing a deep work retreat. And I created
Oh,
like a little
wow.
website, and I promoted all my entrepreneurial friends and said, look, if you've got something that you want to work on in a deep work way for a couple of days, come join me. And so I ended up having like probably about 15 people over that 2 week period come and join me and work. And I just tested a lot of ideas, and I loved it so much. I thought, right, I'm going to do this again. So I did another one a few months later in this incredible chateau in France. It was amazing. And then I did another one a few months after that in a townhouse in Lisbon. And all the way through, I was iterating and testing and validating, and that's what gave me the confidence to say, right, I think this is something. Let's do it. But again, I don't want to raise money. So I put a deck together, and it was interesting because this was now March of 2020.
Oh,
So a
wow.
couple of things happened in March 2020. The first is that suddenly Skimlinks was for sale. And suddenly Skimlinks was about to exit after 2 years. And suddenly I was going to come into, not as much as I would have made 6 years ago if I would have sold then, but enough.
Yeah.
And orders, like COVID hit, and I couldn't leave my apartment, or like I was by myself. And I was starting to talk to people about phone. And I was initially going to, that's right, I was initially going to talk to some investors. And I
Mm-hmm.
had booked in the same week that the lockdown orders came, Skimlinks money came into my bank account. And
Wow.
I was running a virtual festival with all the Skimlinks alumni over the last 10 years to celebrate. And just as the virtual festival that I'd organized was about to start, I popped open my champagne, and in classic me style, the champagne flowed all over my laptop and completely destroyed it. And it was so funny because like 11 years of employees were at that moment joining the Zoom call just in time to see the CEO of the company, going, "Oh no, I got wheelchair forever." And it was a very ungraceful beginning to a celebration. But I then managed to write one of the most interesting emails of my life, because I wrote to all the investors that I was due to have calls with that week and say, "I've had a champagne-related celebration accident. My company just sold, and I don't have a laptop for the next 2 weeks. And also, I don't think I need to raise money anymore because Skinlink's just sold."
Oh my gosh.
Now,
What
that should have
timing.
been
That's incredible.
that should have
Well,
been it. But you know the problem? The thing is, when you tell an investor you don't need money,
oh,
what do you
they
think
want to give
happens?
you more. They want to give you money harder.
So I had investors come and say, "Look, just take our money on any terms. It's okay." And I made them what, it's like, I took the money. And so the second you take VC money, you're on a
Yeah.
path.
Yep.
And so now I'm building a big business, which I'm also loving and is great.
Well, and
But
you're good at it, right? So you get to use everything you
yeah,
learned. But yeah,
yeah,
yeah. The crown is heavy.
the crown is heavy.
And I just loved when I was first introduced to you, the whole idea exploring the physical and mental spaces that bring out the best in human potential. Like that's sort of what got started me into wellness. I was an actress, my body fell apart. I had to, with my own health was starting to build that back up again and started teaching, a lot of artists and creatives about optimization. And it's really wild what a few small things could do. And I was reading on your website, I really, really was loving, you have these 6 key aspects. So the science behind Flown, that I thought were just really great. They're great in general. They're great. I mean, for what you're creating, but just beautiful things for everyone to keep in mind, because they also will keep you happy and healthy. Do you mind going over those a bit? I just thought it was really cool, and some of it's a little bit obvious, and some of it's not. But I think they're really good reminders.
Yeah, well, it probably, like, I'll preface that quickly with, I guess, what then, I guess, Flown became, because
Oh
while
yeah,
it
yeah.
began
Please,
as
yeah, yeah, yeah. We've pivoted a bit,
just to
right?
contextualize it, yeah. So it pivoted. So we did launch as a physical spaces for deep work, like a deep work, Airbnb for deep work. But because I was more mission driven this time round, I wanted to not just be a product that rich people could afford some of the time. So we also offered these low priced, easily accessible, sort of virtual co-working, online focus sessions led by facilitators. Think of it like a Peloton for work. So you have like a charismatic person that gets you sort of excited, and then you work on camera with people, so you feel less lonely as you work, and it helps you be focused. Because yeah, it turns out that technique is called body doubling, and body doubling is basically working in the presence of someone else. And your brain, the mirror neurons in your brain will mirror the positive behaviors that it ambiently observes. It's why going to a library to study was so effective. So we did these kind of sessions, and um, but for various reasons, partly the pandemic, partly because we were doing way too much with a pre-seed budget and team, and
Mhm.
we were just too fragmented, and it was too complex a proposition. And yeah, so I made, again, another pivot decision, which was to shut down the whole property side of the business and just double down on this like virtual co-working, online focus sessions part of the business, and make that sort of become a platform for this kind of online focus
And this
sessions.
pivot was like 2020, 2021 during COVID.
This is now the beginning of 21. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I mean, your timing with that is incredible, because I feel like people are dying for something like this.
Yeah, well, it turns out
Literally.
you're absolutely right, because one of the legacies of COVID, even now that kind of it's over, there are more people working remotely or in a hybrid way than ever
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And while that is mostly great for many people, for many, it can also be quite lonely. It can
Hmm.
also lack the accountability and structure that going to an
Yeah.
office used to provide. And so for
Yeah.
many, particularly those with ADHD or other neurodivergencies, can find themselves really struggling with procrastination,
Hmm.
with distraction, with just an inability to structure your day and be focused and productive.
Hmm.
And it's not really about productive from a let's get more out of you. It's more about finishing your day feeling like your day mattered, like you did work
Hmm.
that you're proud of, and that now you can invest time in the rest of your life. And what I
Hmm.
really looked at while we were designing all this is, well, what does the science say about what helps you live a more deep life, a more deep, a life that's full of focus and depth, and that uses the
Meaningful.
science behind,
Yeah.
deep work in order to enrich our lives. And that's where these sort of six um, sort of principles come in. So, body doubling is an incredibly effective technique. So body doubling is the first. It's an incredibly effective technique that works particularly for those with ADHD, but for anyone. That's why going to
Hmm.
the library was so effective. So what we offer on Flown is it's a virtual body doubling platform. You're at your computer, you're working, but you're at the same time watching a matrix of other people from around the world working at their computer. And it sounds nuts. It sounds nuts, but it's so incredibly effective because you realize, I'm not by myself. I mean, I'm part of a world of people that are right now inching away at human knowledge. And
Hmm.
I'm on camera, so I kind of really shouldn't pick up my phone or
Hmm.
go to the fridge. So it gives you those little nudges to stay productive. So body
Hmm.
doubling is one of the first techniques. The second is around implementation intention. So stating what it is you're going to get done, particularly
Hmm.
to someone that you know or like, is incredibly massively boosts the likelihood that you will achieve that thing. So
Hmm.
one of the things that we do within our live focus sessions, we call them flocks, is you have to state at the beginning what it is that you're going to do. And we also create these little moments of human connection so that you have a bond with that person that you say it to, so that at the end of the 2 hours of focus, when you tell them how much you got done, you've got that extra little push to get it done.
Hmm. So community
But
too. You're building community, which is so incredible.
well, exactly, and actually, that's the third one really, which is around this sense of human connection and community, being accountable to someone that cares, like, and having other humans, even if it's for moments. And so, again, one of the things that we do within the flocks, a lot of people might not have the time or want, it might feel weird talking to a stranger, but they're very structured, short sessions where you say what you're going to work on and a little bit about where you are and what you're working on. And I cannot tell you, Leanna, how incredibly joyful it is. I've been running sessions all this week, for example, in the morning. And on my sessions, I've got a woman from Indonesia working on a spreadsheet. I've got a girl from Perth doing a beautiful oil painting. I've got a PhD student from Manchester working on a thesis. I've got another student, like a PhD student, that's doing from New York, working at 2 a.m. trying to finish a paper, uh, all these people from around the world. And we sit there and for a couple of minutes, we laugh about the fact that we're all here together. We're going to work on this thing, and then we work. So you
Oh,
feel
that
like
is so beautiful.
connected.
That gave me goosebumps on my whole body just
It
thinking
does.
about
It
like
gives me
yeah, it's
every day.
incredible. And like the fact that here people, I don't know, I just love humans. So like here are people doing the best they
Yeah.
can, showing up, really like bringing that energy connection. That's
Yeah.
incredible. I love that
We've
so
had,
much.
we've had people complete the bar and become lawyers on phone. We've got people write
Oh,
books on phone. We've got people, like, it's just incredible the work that gets done. So yeah, it's really that kind of accountability to other humans and that sense of being part of a community is incredibly important. Then you've got like the fact that you've got to actually prioritize time to do focused work.
hmm.
Because if you try to do your deep work after you've done all your shallow work, you'll never get it
Mm,
done. So it's important that you prioritize and you factor in your time to do your focus work, and then your shallow work can work around that. So it's
mm.
really about prioritizing the things that matter, because otherwise you'll do all the little meaningless but high dopamine things.
Right, right. Everyone does that, right? They clean the whole apartment first. They do laundry first. They do all yeah, all these little things, and then you sit down and you're exhausted. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
Exactly. Then there's like ones around, um, so walking, for example, like historically, so many great thinkers have done their work while walking, being out in nature, being, having a sense of awe at the world around you. Physical movement is such a core part of a deep work practice. People think that it's all about the work, but it's not. It's also about how you recharge your focus. And one of the key ways of boosting creativity and well-being that's required for you to then dive in with force the next time you're focusing is to do things like be in nature, to move in a healthy way, to have moments of awe. So we run all walks on Flown where you it's a live call, it's a live walking meditation. So you're out walking while other people around the world are also walking,
Oh,
while one of our facilitators is guiding you to look at things like the leaves or just things in different ways. And then finally, it's the power of play. Again, it's another form of recharge, but
mhm.
laughter, silliness, play, learning, these are other ways that we can balance the force of focus, and that can replenish our creative stores and make us laugh and make our day meaningful. And so again, we do a lot of stuff on Flown. So there's focus sessions, but you can also we have creativity bursts where you can draw for 20 minutes together, or we do this fun sort of breakout, like breaks during each of the focus sessions, so you can play and be a bit silly for a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes. So all of these things, if you factor these in to your life, not only make you better at your work, but make you a happier person all around. Yeah.
Yes. Well, that was the first thing I saw every when I started to read the science behind it. I'm like, all of if you started to just do all of these in your life, you would just be a healthier person as well. You have more purpose, you have more meaning, you have more connection to yourself. And the beautiful thing about this is that so many of these things, listening to your story, you've naturally done when it's been
Yeah.
time to pivot, where it's like, not just walking, but walking all over the world and, taking time to play and like you're about to go to Burning Man. Like, I think it's so beautiful. Like, I mean, I need to get a membership. I was looking at this. I was like, oh, this is so perfect. I need to join. This sounds fabulous. But then just the idea that like you're connecting with people all over the world who are all just really driven to accomplish something or achieve something or to create something. I think there's energy. There's energy there too, right? Like you're connecting in these rooms of people who are doing the best they can. Like there's something really beautiful about that.
It really is. And I know that I mean, everyone loves their company. And so I'm very mindful when I, gush about it, that it sounds like I'm that. But I cannot begin to tell you how often during the week my entire team cry because we get sent emails from people that talk about how much we've changed their life because
Oh,
suddenly being given space to work and to be accepted and to work in a way that makes, for the first time in their life, feel like their days matter
oh wow.
is it's really exciting. And like, yeah, it really works. And I get the thrill. Like for me, I get these moments because I sit here, it's a lovely home, but I sit here all day by myself with my dog,
Right. Same.
and I talk to my team, and that's great, but we're all talking about the same things and the same people. A creative and fulfilled life has you exposed to people from different works of life, doing different things. And so I love when I hop on a session and I'm talking to these extraordinary people from around the world, all inching human knowledge forward bit by bit. And as I often say, what it looks like when you're on a flock, on a focus session on phone, is that you're looking at human evolution in progress. And
Oh,
that's really exciting.
what's more beautiful than that? Look at what you were bringing to our consciousness and evolution, our planet. Like, oh my God, this is incredible, incredible. And it's funny because I have a new creative project, and I'm like, ooh, this would keep me accountable. Maybe I need to come join you guys. I thank you so much. This has been your story is so incredible, and I know a lot of really incredible women, and spoken to a lot of incredible women, but from a young age, you just came out kicking doors down. You're like, I don't care. I'm going to take this over. And I think there's so many beautiful tidbits to take from your journey and your path. So thank you so much for sharing. And at the end, before I wrap it up totally, I always ask the big question, how do you love through it? And you've done it so many different times in your life, but off the top of your head, what is and it doesn't even have to be that big, but what is your one tool that you come back to every time life kind of hands you lemons or knocks you over, gives you a setback? What do you do to sort of dust yourself back up and, keep it moving?
I used to say this to my sister, and um, I think it's this expression, which is you have to see it as a game. You have to see it as a
Mm,
game, and it's nice to win, but it doesn't really matter if you don't win as long as it was a fun game. So enjoy the game,
yes.
and I guess that's what I try to laugh. I really try to laugh a lot
Me
because
too.
it's a game.
It is.
It can be a serious game. There can be big consequences, but it's a game, and I'm good at the game. I'm good at the game, and I still might not win because sometimes the roll of the dice doesn't go my way. But as long as it was a fair game and I played well and I'm proud of how I played, at least it was a fun game. That's
I
how I do
love that. I love that. And it is. We all should have more fun always with everything. Thank you so much. So tell people where they can find you, where they can find Flown, how can they join, where should we direct everyone towards?
Yeah, Flown. It's just flown.com. Flown is in FLOWN because it's both we help you achieve flow states and also the past tense of flying because we help you achieve great heights. It was a fun domain
Ooh!
name to get, let me tell you. So flown.com, and then we are at Flown Space. We actually do own at Flown as well, but long story, Instagram won't let us swap it over. So at Flown Space is our Instagram account. And you get the first 30 days have unlimited usage for free. And then thereafter, limited usage continues to be free, and unlimited usage, you upgrade to pay for that. So
Oh my gosh, I didn't
yeah,
even know you had free offerings. That's so beautiful. That's so
yeah.
then
So
no one
just
has
sign
an
up.
excuse. And there's so many
No one
creatives.
has an excuse.
No, no, you have to
Yeah.
go. You have to check it out. Oh, thank you so much for giving us your
Oh, it's
time.
so
You're
much a pleasure. What a lovely
Oh my
time it was
God.
to speak with
I
you.
know. Well, your story is just so inspiring. And like what you are creating and continue to create, it's very obviously making the world a better place. So thank you so much for being yourself and being an example.
But you know what? I'm just going to finish up with that I think what I've realized is everyone's story is inspiring. And like, you just got to, learn how to tell your story in a way,
Yeah.
like paint yourself out as the hero of your own story, because all
Mm.
stories told in the right way sound just as inspiring.
Well, she's just full of, I mean, we could keep her on. We learn everything. Come on.
Yeah.
Everything coming out of your mouth is great. Thank you so much again. It's such a
Pleasure.
pleasure.